Welcome back to Cinema Flicks and Music Picks. I'm Davy, your host with the most, the beast with the least. And this is our pilot episode one indeed. Most pilots are episode one, aren't they? It'd be a bit useless doing them as episode 22. But episode one of Davy's Depositions, where I'm going to be on air. Look, here's a prop. I noticed I got a prop. And look, it does, see this? Just, what? Right. We're on air with stop it. This is a very professional show. So we're on air with Ryan Gavalier from Ryan's Final Destination. Ryan,
hello.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Good morning.
Yep. Good morning.
Bye. That was Ryan, everybody. So how are you today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Just ready to be interviewed. It's been a little while since I've been interviewed by anybody, so it'll be an interesting time.
Good. Well, this is like a job interview, only there's absolutely no job at the end, and you don't need to tell me that you like my values. So, because nobody likes my values, let's be honest.
No, your values suck.
Tell me about that. No. You've been reading my comments again, haven't you? Yeah. Remember, we're on air. So while we're on air, you can't swear, Ryan. That's one of the rules on my channel. So you can't say shit, fuck, cunt, anything like that. Fuck.
Fuck that.
All right, okay. Right. Okay, just for the pilot, we'll see how it tests. We'll play the room. We'll have, the shits, the fucks, the cunts. But we might need to work on that for episode 2. That might be PG. We'll see how actually it's Tyler next week. I think he'll bring out the PG in me. So the format for the show is there's absolutely no format, but I have done some research. So Ryan Gavalier, you were born in 1769 in Corsica. No, that was Napoleon Bonaparte, wasn't it? Yeah. Ryan, tell us a little something about yourself without telling us something about yourself that you think absolutely everybody that, watches our kind of videos would know anyway. So just give us a little introduction to who's Ryan?
Well, back in 1773, I believe it was, I helped dump a bunch of tea bags off of a boat. And yeah, it was an intense time. Taxes, man, not really a fan.
Alex Harvey, man. They say the kings put a tax on tea. That's the reason y'all Americans drink coffee. Ryan, should you not be aware, and if you're on this channel, you bloody well should be, because he's been referenced 3 billion times. You've been referenced on these videos in the past few months more than me, actually, because you know me and promoting myself. I don't care. I wouldn't watch me. Why should I ask anybody else to? So I'd like to talk to you about certain things, but I also know you're doing other videos with other people, and I don't want to intrude on those. So your passions include movies and music, which is how we connected as well. But I also know you're doing a video on your musical influences and people that have inspired you musically. In a few weeks' time with, is it Peter you're doing that with?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So first of all, look out for that, folks. But obviously, I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, unless I thought there was a good few views in it, in which case you'd like. So rather than say what musical influences and whatnot, what are a couple of things that you perhaps wouldn't say as an influence, but just got you into music, or maybe was your, North Stars, but perhaps they don't even inspire you that much. You just happen to love them. What kind of stuff we're talking?
All right. Well, let's see here. So I'd say some of the earliest music that I know I did enjoy, would be like Ozzy Osbourne. I liked him since I was like 2 years old. And same with Blondie. I liked like Heart of Glass, very young, super catchy song. But I wouldn't say either of those were hugely influential on me as a musician. And I guess like kind of influential to me, but also a really big one early on for me was Led Zeppelin. You know, that was where when I first started playing guitar, a lot of it was Led Zeppelin stuff that I started off with, like Whole Lotta Love and things like that. Although as time went on, I branched out to a lot of different music. I'd say a band that was influential to me to start looking at some other sects of music, maybe some more underground, darker type of music. That wasn't metal, because I had listened to metal my whole life, but when I first heard Bauhaus, I was just like, oh boy, there's a whole other world of music out there for me. And then at that point, I started getting really into like post-punk and goth and electronic and, you know, a ton of other different music. So they were definitely pretty big into getting me into other genres of music as well. In terms of like funk, I always say that I feel like my love of funk probably goes back to hearing the Commodores live when I was like 4 years old. Even though I'm not really a big Commodores fan anymore, definitely hearing them at a young age made me at least appreciate a good groove. So I guess those would be a few that I would name.
That's interesting. Well, I'm on record as having said that I prefer the Commodores after Lionel leaves, so, you know, there's a contrarian pick. Although I don't think the Contrarians will be doing a Lionel Richie Commodores episode anytime too soon.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I want to get into is things that you perhaps don't get to cover elsewhere. So do you have things, I mean, I know, for example, again, for anyone who isn't aware, Ryan is on Ryan's Vinyl Destination. And as the name suggests, vinyl, so music-led. But Ryan wanted to venture into film talk, inspired by, you know, great channels like, you know, other channels, not this one, fucking hell. So no, but Ryan was talking to me about wanting to talk about movies. And then we just started talking about movies that we liked and we had a lot in common. So what would you say, similar question would be the kind of movies that kind of got you into that kind of love of the game, as it were? I mean, I know that you studied film. So.
Yeah. Well, the first film that I ever watched, like not like a kid's like cartoon, the first film I ever watched was Return of the Jedi. I think it was like 3 years old. We had the VHS tape that my parents recorded off of the TV. I would just watch that over and over and over and over again. The commercials and everything. And I just kind of loved it. So that was definitely a pretty big one. We've talked about it off the cuff. The Muppets were very influential to me. My sense of humor, my love of film and television, and even music in some regards.
Yeah.
Seeing like Elton John on there and stuff instantly made me a fan of his music. So Muppets were huge. For horror, because that's one of my favorite genres. I think when I was like 8, I first saw Night of the Living Dead. And that's the first horror movie that I recall watching. So that definitely made a big impression on me because it's such a tremendous film. Let's see here. Getting into historical films, I'd say Braveheart was probably one of the first that I got into.
Never heard of it, man. Never heard of
it. Yeah, I was probably like 10 or 12 years old when I saw that one. And fell in love with it pretty quick. What else? I'd say like when it comes to like sense of humor, I remember watching like Laurel and Hardy and like the Three Stooges and Abbott and Costello with my grandpa when I was young. Moved on to a lot of different kinds of humor, but that was some of the early stuff that I found really funny, along with the Muppets. That'd be a few to name. I think that, you know, when it comes to like directors and stuff, I definitely took a lot of inspiration, or a lot of my passion came from directors like Scorsese. I used to watch his movies a ton. Not really as much anymore, but he was really important to me for a certain time of my life. The same goes for Tarantino. I don't really watch his movies anymore, but at a certain point of time, it was pretty mind-blowing to me. In terms of like more artsy type of stuff, I remember watching some Godard and some Kurosawa, and those were definitely very influential to me in wanting to know more about film. Yeah, that'd be a few that I would name.
Yeah. So take for example your Scorsese's and your Tarantinos. Would you say that you don't revisit them because I just feel like I've moved on, or would you feel like I do with Scorsese? I just know them so well that I almost don't need to return to them.
I would say it's a mix. Scorsese a bit more positive than Tarantino. So yeah, Scorsese, I mean, I watched most of his movies, I would say, multiple times. Haven't loved all of them, but for the most part, I've liked every movie that he's done that I've seen, at least. And I mean, Goodfellas, I know that movie so well at this point that I don't really have a need to watch it more than once every couple of years at this point. Same goes for Casino. One of my favorites is Mean Streets, and I've seen that movie so many times. And then same goes for Taxi Driver. I mean, that movie made such a big impact on me. When I first saw it, it left me like fucked up for weeks, honestly, after I watched it the first time. And I've seen it so many times at this point that the impact isn't quite the same anymore, even though I still really appreciate it. Tarantino, it's more of a frustration type of thing. I mean, I think that, I could still go back and watch Pulp Fiction every once in a while. And same with Reservoir Dogs, Jackie Brown, kind of Kill Bill, although I've never been the biggest Kill Bill fan, honestly. I like it, but it's not one that always grabbed me. But when it comes to the films after that, his formula just got so tired to me. I remember when Django Unchained came out, and I was like, you had the first half of the movie, and it's like, is he finally going to make an actual serious, like, decent movie that treats something with respect?
Yeah.
And then the last half of the movie, it just goes ape shit again.
Yeah.
It's like, he's just never grown as a director, in my opinion. He's always been the same juvenile type of stuff. And it doesn't appeal to me like it did when I was like 15.
Yeah. Yeah. I must admit with Tarantino, I mean, I grew up with him. We didn't work in the video store together back in the day. But Reservoir Dogs had its world premiere in Glasgow. And on the DVD talks about how it was the explosion in the Glasgow Film Theatre, the kind of the buzz from that kind of blew it up. And Pulp Fiction was obviously massive in 95. I had a bootleg of that. And then Jackie Brown was the first one I saw in the cinema in 1998. It was at the same time as Titanic, I want to say. And I remember seeing the trailer for it, which was just Pam Grier saying, Tarantino goes, Pam Grier is, and she goes, Jackie Brown. And they just do it over and over, like 10 different takes. It's such a great trailer. And I was like, I need to see this. At that point, I'd already seen Coffee and things. So it's like Pam Grier's back. So this will do it for me. So for someone like Tarantino, what do you think of his revisionism when it comes to the last few movies? Like, for example, the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he changes what actually happened.
You know what? I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't even watch it. That's how tired of him I am at this point.
I think you might find that to be his most mature film.
Really?
Yeah, but it does turn schlock in the last 20 minutes. But also, it feels deserved because he rewrites. Obviously, he rewrote history with Inglourious Bastards. No swearing in this channel, please. So he rewrote history with that, where, you know, Hitler gets killed in the cinema and things. So that was obviously revisionism. But in this, it's rewriting history because he wants to rewrite Hollywood history. And that seems more on brand for Quentin Tarantino. He seems to have that's a direct connection for him. You know, it's an LA thing and he's an LA boy. Whereas a World War II thing, it did feel like he just wants to do the dirty dozen, doesn't he, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I mean, I think the last movie I watched of his, honestly, was Django. I was just so turned off by it that I just haven't watched one since.
Hateful Eight's pretty good. I mean, Kurt Russell in Western anytime will get me in, you know, with the big, you know, the Kurt Russell. I mean, it's no Bone Tomahawk, which, you know, I think it was the same beard he used for it. You know, he just went from one straight into the other. He didn't regrow it or anything. But yeah, it's a terrifically Tarantino-esque film where you could easily shave an hour off it and have a much tighter film. But, you know, he just loves his own script so much, doesn't he, that he just lets himself go.
Yeah, so I'll get around to watching them.
That's the great thing, as we say about movies and music, that they don't go anywhere. So you can, well, unless they're Fox titles and Disney have put them in the vaults. But similar question then, jumping back to music. Do you find that there are bands, albums that you think, I know them so well, I just don't really need, you know, I can hear them in my head all the time without actually needing to listen? Or do you still feel the need to actually stick it on and hear it in the flesh, as it were?
I mean, there's definitely albums that I could play through the whole thing in my head, but I feel like if I love an album that much, that I usually end up going back around to it and listening to it. I mean, an example for one of them would be, well, I'm wearing the shirt right now, a lot of Pink Floyd albums. I mean, I've heard them so many times, like Animals and Dark Side and The Wall and Wish You Were Here, even Metal, you know, etc. I've heard them all so many times that I could basically play the whole album in my head. But that doesn't mean that every once in a while I don't want to play it.
Yeah.
Like, of all those albums, The Wall's the one I probably go to the least at this point, just because it's not even my favorite Pink Floyd record.
Yeah.
But I still do put it on every once in a while and still enjoy it quite a bit. Another band, you know, like Yes, Close to the Edge. I know the whole album in my head, all the changes and stuff. But I still do love to put it on, maybe every year or so, something like that. I don't know. Not as often as I used to. I used to be obsessed with the album, but I don't know. I'm trying to think if there's any others that come to mind. Disintegration by The Cure. You know, once again, I heard that album so many times, and it also played a pretty important role in certain parts of my life too, with like a relationship I had and then kind of getting over that relationship and stuff. The album was definitely there for a lot of times. So that's definitely one that I could play the whole thing in my head, but every once in a while I need to hear it.
I'm finding myself the revisiting albums or films for your videos, for Tyler's videos, for Grant's series, for Sea Tranquility, that putting the homework in is very rewarding sometimes, even if you even if you think you know it inside out, from front and back. You listen more intently and you start to pick up on things, that themes and ideas that critically you're thinking of. And we're doing on your channel at the moment, obviously, the U2 series. And for anyone who wants some behind the scenes, Ryan and I pretty much just gush over these albums and kind of work them out like group therapy over text, just to, what's this? Oh my God, it's killing me. I'm crying my eyes out. Whereas I could have done these albums from memory, almost all of them, apart from the really modern ones. But so much more rewarding to immerse yourself, throw yourself right in the deep end. I mean,
definitely.
Do you find that that you have a different ear when it comes to, because you obviously do written reviews for Saint Tranquility and you want to continue to write and you want to, as well as we'll come into some of your musical interests, but do you find that with a critical ear you can hear things differently, or do you have different modes of listening essentially? Do you have a passive and then a critical mode, or
I mean, it's hard because, for instance, when I'm writing reviews for Sea of Tranquility, I put one of these bands on and I never know these bands. They're people I've never heard of, with the occasional that I have heard of. So I'm going into these bands blindly. And I'm knowing that at the moment I have to write the review for it. So I am going in with a critical ear. I'm like, well, how's the production sound? How derivative is it compared to other stuff? Like, is it doing anything really musically at all? How's the vocals? How's the instruments? How is the songwriting? How is it paced? How is it sequenced, etc.? So I'm looking at all this kind of stuff. And I tend to be harder on albums when I'm listening to them with a critical ear. But I will say that for that reason, I usually give albums a few listens before I'll ever try to form an opinion on it. Either for better or for worse. Like, I know there's some albums where the first time I heard it, I'm like, oh, I really like this. Listen to it like 2 or 3 more times. I'm like, it's actually not that good. Or something I didn't like on the first time, and then I really start to love it. Talking about the U2 series, I mean, this week, I'm not going to give my opinions on the albums, but I've listened to the albums probably like 12 to 15 times a piece. And through that amount of time, my opinion's still basically the same, but I do hear little things that I didn't hear on that first listen or that second listen, or I've heard the albums before, so first recent listen.
And we were saying earlier on how the music stays the same, but we change around the music. And if I'm listening to something passively, like just last night, I was listening to Brian Wilson's debut solo album. It was passively. I wasn't planning on writing a review for it. I just wanted to enjoy the album. No critiques from it. I mean, it could just be a perfect album, which it very well may be. But I could also really start listening to it with more a critical ear and probably find some stuff I don't like in it. But just listening to it for fun, I was like, oh, this is an amazing album. And do you ever find, as I frequently do, that I have certain things that I don't, even though I own them, I enjoy them a lot, I wouldn't actually want to review them because I wouldn't want to expose myself to that kind of thinking. I wouldn't want to have to critically evaluate them because it would take away, maybe not the mystique is the correct term, but I wouldn't want to nitpick myself into not enjoying them anymore, and I'm pretty sure I would with certain things. I call it the Guns N' Roses conundrum personally, where I think I can listen to GNR still, but if I had to critically listen to GNR, I guarantee I'm not going to be as big a GNR fan after that.
It's funny you bring them up, actually, because I think listening to Appetite for Destruction with a critical ear made me like the album more than I ever did.
That's good.
It was weird because I've always liked the album, but I did fall away from it for a while just because I was burnt out on it. Felt like I moved on. But when I listened to it again with a critical ear, I'm like, damn, this is a good album. But then you listen to pretty much anything else they've done and you listen to it with a critical ear and there is issues, big issues.
Yeah.
And I do like some of their other stuff too. It's not like I dropped off right after Appetite kind of person, but there are definitely less good albums than Appetite was.
I'm one of these hipster douchebags that follows Izzy Stradlin more than I follow anybody else in the band. I particularly love Izzy's solo stuff, Juju Hounds and whatnot.
He's the best member of that band.
Yeah, I've not got much time for Slash.
Him and Duff.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Slash, but I've always preferred Izzy, and I have preferred Duff over anybody in the band. I think Duff is a really good bass player, and he also brought a lot to the band, as did Izzy. I mean, I think that Axl is their worst enemy, probably, and I actually liked Steven. He was pretty cool. And then Slash is a talented guy. I don't really care too much for his solo stuff, though. It's very mediocre in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind It's 5 o'clock, but yeah, the snake pit evolved and they started going into more projects. Projects is always a word that worries me. It tends to have guest stars and production sheen connotations that kind of worry me when it's referred to as a project rather than just two people making music together.
Yeah, I mean, he's just basically became like an A-list actor for music, like the Tom Hanks of music or something.
Yeah. Which
I mean, at this point, he's just the name, and he's gonna be there, and he's gonna, I don't know.
He's got a silhouette that you can market and things. So yeah. Interesting though, Tom Hanks had a much worse heroin habit back in the 80s and 90s than Slash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Philadelphia, like he actually was that skinny because of the heroin. That's why they cast him. It wasn't his acting. The pilot's going well, folks. People shouldn't expect a massive tone shift in these videos. It's not going to turn into Frost Nixon overnight. Let's recover from that. Don't cover your mouth unless you're coughing. I don't want to catch anything off you. So, would you say that obviously on this channel that's what I do is music and movies, and your channel that's what we do is music and movies. On Tyler's channel, we're all similar interests. But would you say the two have always been in flux with you? Have you always linked them? Like you said with Muppets, for example, it was from a comedy point of view, a film point of view, a TV point of view, and a music point of view with, Paul Williams songs from, say, the Muppet movie and whatnot. So would you say that music and movies have always been, even mentioned Mean Streets, which is one of the first films to use pop music as a thing rather than just a score? Would you say they've always been entwined in your personal life, or can you disassociate the two in your past?
Like separate the two of them, or? Yeah, I mean, I think they've always been somewhat intertwined. Nowadays I listen to a lot more music than I watch movies. But I have a very visual mind as I listen to music. Like I can, in my head, picture scenes of a movie like that I would want to make with that song, or where would that song work out really well. And then I see, scenes in life or in movies, and I'm like, what song would work really well with this right now? Like, kind of intertwining things that way. I mean, when I think about some like guilty pleasure movies of mine, Some of them are from the 80s, like Eddie and the Cruisers, where I like the music and I like the movie. Definitely very intertwined there. Or even another Michael Perry one, Streets of Fire. Yeah. I liked both the music and the movie in that.
With
and I think about a movie that, yeah, Rick Moranis. I think of a more like high quality movie that I really loved, like Almost Famous. Watching that as I was growing up, I was like, I was probably even more fascinated with the soundtrack than the whole movie itself, but the way that they were mixed together was perfect, you know? And I don't know, I've always loved screenwriting, but one thing that I've always thought would be really cool is to work on the soundtracks for people's movies, whether it's writing the music for them or it's finding songs that would fit well for certain scenes. So that's something that's always fascinated me as well. So I definitely say they're intertwined. They always have been, ever since I was young.
So as someone who is, and I say this as a friend, so I'm not being totally subjective here, objective here, folks. Someone who is a good writer, a talented musician, and knows sounds, knows how to play with sounds, and you know what should be a demo, what should be further developed, what should be sparse. Would you think ultimately, you know, I'd love to write a film, I'd love to score a film, you know, would you do both, or would you think I'd need to dedicate myself to one, or would it depend on the subject, or you know?
I would say it would definitely depend on the subject, but it would definitely be something I'm interested in. I've thought about it before. I mean, I've written screenplays before, and like, as I was doing it, you know, I would put certain songs that I thought would be really good in certain scenes, like that I saw in my mind. And then, yeah, I would definitely write the music for it. I'd probably write music before I do the screenplay at this point, just because music actually comes easier to me. It's something I'm more passionate about. But I would definitely do both. Definitely depending on the subject, and a big thing of it would be resources too.
Yeah.
So
sorry if I'm boring you here, Ryan. Sorry, just have a good yawn there. Don't worry about it.
You're all right. No, yeah, I mean resources too. I mean, making a film takes a lot of, especially nowadays. So it would just be a matter of getting that all together. But yeah, I would definitely be interested. I mean, I'm working on music as we speak, so that's something that's a little bit more nearer and dearer to the future.
Yeah, and you've been kind enough to send me some of your music, and it you know, I'm not going to go into any of the stuff in it because it's your music to talk about, but it's you can do. You mentioned kind of influences and genres and things, but you're someone who's clearly soaked them up and is able to, I don't want to say reproduce because that sounds derivative, but you're someone who's able to express yourself in those genres fluently. So you can do funk. There was blues in your funk, but you can also do this kind of indie sound. You can also do a very singer-songwriter, more traditional folky sound with a more laid back and when I say romantic, I mean in the more romanticized sense. You can do that kind of thing as well. So do you find that you're in a certain mood and that's what the muse takes you there? Or do you find that day you just want to batter out some funk stuff and that's what you're going for? What do you have a process is really the gist of the question, I suppose.
It's a mix because I mean, there'll be days where like I'll be feeling something in my life or like an idea will pop in my head for like lyrics. And typically when I write lyrics first, the song does tend to have more of like a singer-songwriter type of feel. I think that's naturally where I like fit the best for myself when it comes to writing songs, but then when it comes to me coming up with compositions, that's a whole other thing. Like if I decide I want to write a funk song, I'll just start laying down grooves and riffs and stuff and throwing shit at the wall until something sticks, basically, and then run off of that idea. But I can't say that like a lot of my lyrics that pop up in my head are very funk related at all. Like it doesn't.
It's not like red genre, is it? Yeah.
No, it's more like, I mean, I've had some songs that I do for fun, but then they tend to be like pretty basic lyrics, like just joking around stuff. Yeah. But when I'm actually writing from my heart, tends to be more of like a songwriter, folky ballad type of thing. I mean, I've always been very driven to ballads as a musician and as a listener, like they really hit me. So I think that when I write, that tends to come out of me as well.
So, I mean, right now, and you think I'm joking here. You're on my MP3 at the moment, in between Tom Waits and I think it was Prince. You were in between when I looked the last time, and I was listening to the tracks that you sent me, and it did strike me how diverse they were, and we didn't. I mean, we went into a bit of depth in terms of. And again, we're not going to go into this on, the songs where, because that's your stuff. But were those, and the ones I'm talking about, not last week's ones, the ones that you put on your Patreon, were those recorded over a period, or were they a burst? Do you find creative bursts, or do you find sustained periods? Or?
I think I put 2 songs up on Patreon.
Yeah, I think you sent me a few more, but yeah.
Yeah, I sent you a few more. A lot of those instrumentals were probably recorded in a period of a few months or so. Some of them more frequently than others. Like a few of them were probably in a week's time that I recorded them. When I start recording a song, it becomes something that I work on like nonstop until I finish it. I've had some very late nights with that kind of stuff. So like I just started recording one yesterday and I'm in the process of it.
I've not even heard that one, folks.
Yeah, well, you've heard the demo of it.
Oh, right, okay.
So I'm actually like recording it right now, and I've got some guitar parts down on it. I've got like multiple vocal tracks on it, doing some harmonizing and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll get bass and some percussion. I haven't decided whether I'm going to use like a digital drum track or just use my drum block now for like a rough cut. I kind of like that for what I've been doing recently with like acoustic songs. But obviously when I bring it to my band, I have a drummer who can start doing some more.
Is that your drummer texting there? His ears are burning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. But yeah, so he could do some more with the drums, but I might just throw a little basic drum track on there or just use this guy here for the meantime. Either way works. I mean, I've done a couple other tracks like that, but I'll probably digitally make a drum track, which is what I have to do right now because I don't have a drum kit. But eventually I will have one. Yeah.
I loved those tracks last week, those demos. Like, to me, they were just perfect the way they were, but I know you've got a sound. Do you find that you have that sound already? And you did say this to me at the time, you wanted to keep going and develop those tracks into a bigger sound. And I was saying to you, I love this just acoustic based version. So do you find that, no, I can already hear it in my head, I can hear where I want to take it? Or do you let it come to you through experimentation and trial and error?
It's a mix, because like I could definitely hear the vocal harmonies in my head as I was making that demo. The drums, I could kind of hear what I wanted to do with it. The bass as well, but when it comes to, I had a general idea that I just wanted to be a bigger sound. And so at that point, I will do a lot of experimentation. I'll jam over it with my different instruments and stuff. I have to figure out what I want to do for drum tracks. I might honestly just put down a drum track and scrap everything that I've done so far. You make a new draft now.
You're not getting your demos back. I'm keeping those. So
yeah. Well, what I mean is like the thing that I'm working on right now, I might just start a new one, have the drum tracks, and then start to record over those so I can go off of the drum track, which might alter the way that things sound a little bit. That's happened in the past, but for the better too. Yeah, so I mean, I have a general idea of what I want to do, but there will definitely be a lot of experimentation, both in the actual playing and the production of it. I've had some weird things happen as I'm sitting there messing with some different effects and different sounds, and we'll see what happens with these. I mean, I feel like these tracks are going to be a bit more bare bones just because they're kind of more singer-songwriter type stuff.
That second one got me, man. That second one got me. Again, we'll let you reveal these to the world when you want to. So we won't go into to the content, the reasons, where the whys and wherefores. But my goodness, folks, what a treat's in store. So let's also talk about your band, because as well as doing your own stuff, as you said, you have the band. So do you have a collaboration process with the band? You mentioned with your drummer and things, or do you tend to be more of I hate the term creative force. It seems to imply boldness and leadership in terms of your force of will, but do you find that you tend to be the one with the ideas, or is it a collaboration?
I would say that so far, this is a bit newer of a band. I've been in some other ones in the past as well. I have come to the table with a lot of ideas, but at the same time, the members of my band have also done a lot to collaborate as well. But I do come up with riffs really easily, and then we'll start jamming off that, or I'll come with a original song that I've written, etc. I mean, I'm more used to being a solo artist, honestly. So it kind of comes naturally for me to come with ideas, just because I do a lot of stuff on my own, and I play like gigs on my own, and I know songs that I've covered in the past alone. So I know ones that we could probably pull off pretty well as a band. Like I have a whole little roster of songs that I could just pull out of my ass whenever I have a performance. So yeah,
like a repertoire to be able to pull out. So we've covered your music there in terms of what you'd like to do and how you develop. To go back to the film aspects, do you find that you watch films, like you were saying, we did the critically versus passively? Do you ever watch films critically now that we talked earlier how you kind of didn't like that film school mentality of you must like this, it's Sergei Eisenstein's editing technique, so you must like it. Do you find that you kind of rebel against that and you just enjoy them for what they are, or do you still have that, I remember being taught this technique, and you still, you appreciate it for that, or does it?
I would say that when it comes to film, for me, it's definitely a less technical thing for me. The way that I see things critically, I look more at the story and look for plot holes and stuff, but it really depends on how I'm watching a movie. I mean, we reviewed those Dario Argento movies. At that point, it had to be with more of a critical eye. But if I'm just putting on a movie to relax, I mean, I just watch it passively at that point. Might not enjoy it, but I don't really think too far about why. But if I am, reviewing a film or I'm doing homework, I will look for things. I used to write reviews for a blog that I was doing about films. So when I did that, I was always looking with a critical eye. But yeah, I mean, the whole film school mentality, I think there is validity to like getting so far into all those techniques and stuff, but at the end of the day, if you can't enjoy the story, then it doesn't matter how cool the camera angles are, because you still have a boring movie. Like, I just think that's something that kind of bugged me about film school, is how pretentious it was. Everybody wanted to have like the coolest camera angles, and I love good cinematography.
Yeah.
But you have to have the story first, or you don't have anything.
Yeah.
So
you can't just be Roger Deakins and expect to turn, chicken shit into chicken salad, if you don't have the structure. So obviously, as a writer of music, of reviews, of screenplays, that's where you're coming from, is that POV. And did you find that film school wasn't always conducive to that when you were studying film, that they were trying to push you towards more technical aspects that were, interesting, informative, good to know for filmmaking, but just not perhaps where you wanted to take your own interests in film?
Well, I think that for me, I think that I think that a lot of the people lacked any irony.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that got a little hard at times. Like, we had to write screenplays. And I was like, I want to write a purposely bad screenplay. And that was the idea. Not that it was like bad, that it was badly written, but it was like purposely a B movie. Meant to be cheesy, meant to be tongue-in-cheek, meant to be ironic. And, they didn't really want to see it that way. They were like, well, that's technically not right. I'm like, yeah, that was on purpose. You've seen me write a script technically right before, but that wasn't what I was doing with this, because this is a piece of art. This is how I want to do it,
I think that's where I was coming in, because it's like I was saying to you earlier offline about English. The reason I enjoyed studying it is to break the rules. I think you have to know them in the first place. And not enough people, therefore, go on to break them and take their own spin on things. You think, well, Shakespeare and Dickens have done all these things, boys. You might as well try something new. There's no point, and you can study Myrna, you can study Lang, you can study D.W. Griffith till the cows come home. You can study the opening shot of Touch of Evil with Orson Welles, that great crane shot. But it's been done. They've been done in those movies, so you can appreciate them. You can see why they're great. But so what? They've been done now. So what are you going to add to it? And that's something that I find that the education system in general for the arts tends to lack, is they teach you why something is considered good, not always how to do your own thing. They don't encourage the creative process as much, is what I find. Did you find that?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my school that I went to isn't really like one of the better film schools in the world. My major was actually technically digital media production. So, I don't think that the idea there was to become, or to like let you be completely creative. It was more go in and go out. But I think that I learned a lot. My favorite things that I did were actually the audio production classes that I took, which is something that's really stuck with me, because now as I'm working more on music production, I have some of the practice that I got from that to make things sound really, really good. So I'm working on that now, but yeah.
And when it comes to film. You say you watch it more passively if you're just laid back and enjoying it yourself, for example. Do you find that happens more and more going forward than it did perhaps when you were younger? That you just, yeah, I mean, we both saw Thor on date nights recently, for example. Not at the same time. That would be a bit of a trip for one of us to go see Thor together. That would be a colossal waste of money. But we had differing opinions on it, and you're I just thought it was just another whatever. Whereas you had no expectations, and because of no expectations, were pleasantly surprised. So do you find that a lack of expectation these days and being more passive in these kind of things is helping you to just roll with the punches, as it were, when it comes to these kind of things?
Yeah, so with the Thor movie, I went to go see that on a date like a week ago, and I did have expectations, honestly, because I don't like Marvel movies very much. I did when I was like a younger teenager, but I started to get really sick of them. And the last one that I saw was probably Infinity War, which was like 6 years ago at least at this point, I think. So
pandemic time, it could have been 20 years ago for all we know these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really wasn't excited to see it other than going on a date, but like the movie itself, I wasn't excited. But when I went, I don't know, I felt like Marvel was at least trying to do something a little different with it than usual. I mean, the humor felt like it was a bit more well thought out than some of the cheap jokes that were in past Marvel humor. I thought that it wasn't a great movie. I mean, if I had to rate it, it would probably still be around like a 6 out of 10. Like, I can't say I'd ever watch it again, probably. Or if I was going to, I might, but it wouldn't be like the first movie I'd watch again. But I also couldn't say that I wouldn't watch it. I laughed. I thought that there was some moments of the writing that were actually genuinely emotional. Like, it wasn't just cheap or unnecessary, but I felt like there was some
more earned.
Some parts in it were better than others. So yeah, I think that with expectations, I mean, it just depends on what I'm watching. Like, for instance, if I'm going to go see, say, like, I saw the new Scream movie. What was that, like less than a year ago at this point?
Yeah, I didn't even bother.
Well, I went in with no expectations. I thought it was going to suck, but I actually had a lot of fun with it. And it was a better movie than I expected. But like I said, I didn't go in with expectations. And then, I saw Halloween Kills. That wasn't really that good, honestly.
Yeah.
I had fun in the theater watching it, laughing at how absurd it was, and then later on laughing at Jamie Lee Curtis about how pretentious she was about it in interviews and stuff. That was hysterical to me, like trying to make it sound like it's a masterpiece when it wasn't by any means.
I mean, has anybody been paid more money for lying in bed for a few hours and then crawling to a phone than Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie? Gee whiz. I mean, obviously that's building up to the next thing, but she was paid a few $1 million for that performance. And
yeah, it was pretty goofy. But or for instance, like one movie I did watch very critically recently was The Northman.
We're both Robert Eggers fans, yeah. So yeah.
But I just went out of a whim. I don't really care for Viking related stuff personally. It's not a subject that really interests me, but I really wanted to go to the movie theater, and I went and saw that movie, and I liked it a lot. I had some issues with it though, that's where I went with a critical eye. I thought some of the pacing was really bad in the movie near the beginning of it.
I thought it was a masterpiece. I must admit to being terribly biased. I absolutely adore Robert Eggers, and I know you like The Witch and you like
The Lighthouse.
Lighthouse. And The Witch is Nathan's favorite. He absolutely adores The Witch.
Yeah.
He's Black Philip the Goat. He's got the Funko Pop. He's got posters and everything. So it's Robert Eggers is one of those filmmakers. I think, yeah, keep going. You're interested. You have my attention.
Yeah, I mean, the movie was probably like, if I had to rate it, probably like an 8.5 or 9 out of 10 for me. Like it was very, very good. Like I said, some of the pacing at the beginning was just a little too rushed for me. But as the movie went on, I was like, this thing was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the performances were really solid. I thought Nicole Kidman was kind of a weird choice, but she did a good job, though, for what it was.
You just have to look past the plastic surgery, unfortunately. It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those Beverly Hills Viking surgeons are sure good. God bless her. She had to put up with Tom Cruise for a long time.
But no, I really liked the movie, even though I did look at it critically. I ended up really loving it. So that was one where I didn't really have expectations. I mean, I knew that I've seen a couple of Robert Eggers movies and really liked them, but I didn't really hold it to any pedestal because I don't like Viking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I expected to not really be into this one, but I
like Robert Eggers, but this could be a bump in the road for me and Bobby. He could maybe lose me. I'm kind of sorry.
Even if I didn't end up liking the movie because of the subject matter, I'd probably still respect his filmmaking with it. But I also really enjoyed the film, even with its subject matter.
I mean, that's
like finding me a movie about pirates I'll actually like.
No,
because I hate pirates.
Yeah,
I really hate pirates.
Do a pirate voice.
Urge matey. No.
Do you know the interesting thing about that voice? It is 72 years old. It was invented by Robert Newton for Disney's Treasure Island. If you watch any pirate movie before that, they talk in normal accents. Robert Newton invented that accent in 1950. But people still think that's how pirates must talk. You watch the Pirates of the Caribbean, they're all going, "You best start believing in ghost stories. You're in one." Johnny's coming back, folks. You mentioned obviously the Northman. I have a similar thing going on at the moment with one of my favorite filmmakers, Ben Wheatley, who's made some of my favorite films of the past 20 years, and Kill List, and A Field in England, and Sightseers, all these great British movies that I don't know if you've seen or, you know. But he is now doing The Meg 2 with Jason Statham. I think, I don't grudge, you know, because those films would not have made him a millionaire. I don't grudge anybody a payday, but I've got this wonderful filmography of a director that I absolutely adore. And now he's doing The Meg 2. Do you have, so that leads me into a question rather than just me talking about myself on my, you know, an interview with you. Do you have filmmakers who still produce a film and you're interested just because it's the filmmaker rather than just the subject?
Let's see here.
I mean, we obviously talk about a lot about David Lynch. So, I mean, if he announced anything tomorrow, would be.
Oh, I would definitely watch anything that David Lynch put out. I mean, he's one of my all-time favorite directors. As a writer and sometimes director, Charlie Kaufman put anything new out, I would watch it. Let's see here.
Can I say Wes Anderson might be on both our lists as well?
Yeah, I love Wes Anderson. But I can't promise that I would do the same for Scorsese. I probably would, but I still have not watched The Irishman. I don't know. I just haven't gotten around to it, but I've seen most of his other films.
Yeah, I mean, The Irishman's great. I watched it the day it came out, and it finished about 25 minutes ago, so it's quite long.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think here. I guess if I was going to go to theaters, I mean, if John Carpenter put anything new out, I would be curious. Even though I'm not like consistently a huge fan of John Carpenter, I think he's made a lot of shit, but I would still go and see it.
Yep.
Let's see here. Those would be some of the main ones for me. We talked about Robert Eggers.
I mean, there's no doubt ones that just aren't occurring to you that you know. I don't like sending questions in advance. I like to bring these things, so that's why I didn't want to send any questions off to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having trouble thinking of any directors where I would see it without any fail.
Do you know who one would be for me? And he is inconsistent, but you know how I love scuzziness, and it's one of the main reasons I was so all over Rattling Hum last week, is people were saying now they had issues with it being all over the place, whereas I said after Joshua Tree, that's what I love about it, is that it's scuzzy, it's messy, and it's a bit of a disaster zone, but all the individual parts are fun to put together. Spike Lee would be one for me. He's made lots of bad movies, films that I just think, I don't need you to remake Old Boy, Spike. I just don't need you to do it. But then he comes out with Chirac, which is one of my favorite Spike Lee movies. He only did that a few years ago. Stunning film with John Cusack's amazing, and that he gives probably his best performance outside of playing Brian Wilson. He did The Five Bloods on Netflix a couple of years ago, which again is a stunning movie. I think it was one of Chadwick Boseman's last films. So there are these, sometimes it's the people who have hit creative highs, and like you say with John Carpenter, have also hit creative lows. You just think, I kind of need to follow them and see, because it could be back up here again, or I need to know. It's the what's in the box situation. If you don't look in, you'll never know. It might be Gwyneth Paltrow's head, but it might not be. Oh wait, we can't talk about that anymore. Kevin Spacey's in. We can't mention Seven. Sorry. Are you a fan of David Fincher? That was a great filmmaker. I love David Fincher.
I do like David Fincher. I mean, there's a lot of directors that I've enjoyed the movies of. It's just kind of hard to think of ones that right now I would go and see any movie that they would make. Because a lot of them have died, and a lot of them are. I mean, for instance, someone like Argento, I can't promise I'll go watch every movie that he puts out, even though I might, but I've been so turned off by some of the ones that he's made that it's like, is it a definite that I would go and see that?
The new one is so good. The new one is so good. Dark Shade.
I do need to check that out.
Yeah. It's his best since at least Stendhal Syndrome. Way back in the 90s easily. And it's his most giallo-like in a long, long time. But a real giallo, so it doesn't just call it giallo and stick it on the posters, though that's going to put it this way. It's his first film since Dracula in 2012, and it's a little bit better than that. So.
Yeah. Oh, Paul Thomas Anderson.
PTA. Yeah, PTA.
I really liked the last one, Licorice Pizza. I thought that was a solid movie. I would go see whatever his next one is. I've liked every movie that he's made, so
I was 14 when Magnolia came out and saw it in the pictures, as we say, the theatre, as you say over there, and completely fell in love with PTA from that moment on. I was so on board with whatever he had to throw. I mean, he's really never let me down. I adored The Master and There Will Be Blood, and Inherent Vice was, again, scuzzy as hell, but I loved it for it.
Boogie Nights.
Oh, yeah, that was the film that had me intrigued to see Magnolia, because it was now on cable at the time. So that was, so this is the guy that did that. And then years later, I saw his first film, Hard Eight, which is a terrific film as well. So yeah, PTA would definitely be on the list.
I'd say that Christopher Nolan used to be that way for me, but it hasn't been that way in a while. I haven't felt the immediate pull to watch a movie of his. Back when I was watching all of his stuff in the early 2000s and stuff, like Memento and things like that.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's, I might get around to it one day.
And I adore Guy Pearce. He's one of my absolute favorites. And I wish Chris would work with him more often. I wish he would retire Michael Caine, stop using Kenneth Branagh, get rid of the usual suspects, and get Guy Pearce back. Because Guy Pearce is one of those actors who needs a good director to really let him be Guy Pearce. It's one of those actors. And is there anything that you... Oh, you froze for a second there. Is there anything on the horizon that you're particularly looking forward to? I feel like that doesn't happen so much anymore with film, where you don't, a year out, you used to know that's coming out and I'm really excited. It tends to just drop these days, and that's when you hear about it. I don't know if you find that.
Yeah, I don't really have anything, to be completely honest. I mean, that's one thing that I do love going to the movie theater, is that I have things that I look forward to. Like when I first saw the preview to Licorice Pizza, it was probably about a year before the movie came out, but I was like, I set the date in my calendar and I went and saw the movie. And like right now though, there isn't really anything. Like the last time I went to the movies to see that Thor movie, all the previews looked horrendous. I'm like, what the hell are these? There was that Nicolas Cage movie that came out recently, the one where he played himself. I really wanted to see that in theaters, but I just did not get a chance to. So that's one that I'm looking forward to watching soon. But yeah, for stuff that's supposed to come out, there's nothing that I'm really excited about right now.
I mean, Nick Cage might be the ultimate example of what we were just saying about for directors, in terms of this could be the worst thing ever, or it could be Nicolas Cage's, Nicolas Cage. I mean, you're either going to get Mandy or you're going to get Ghost Rider. You're not going to, there isn't much middle ground with Nick Cage. He's one of those Buster Flush kind of actors. I mean, I loved Mandy, but I hated Prisoners of the Wasteland. It was just trying to do Mandy again. I loved Color Out of Space a couple of years ago. I thought that was terrific. But yeah, I've not seen the new one either. The Unbearable Weight of Talent, I think it's called, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
They should have just called it Nick Cage the movie. Kentucky Fried Cage. That would, that would work. Get John Landis to direct that.
Yeah.
Just don't let him in charge of the helicopters. It happened. What's it going to do, sue me?
You took my head off with that joke.
Oh. Sorrow for Vic Morrow. I'm sorry, I didn't kill him. It's not my problem. Do you know, one of the most horrible things I've ever seen in my life is, do you ever see Trailers from Hell on YouTube? Where a filmmaker will do a commentary on a classic film trailer? It's Joe Dante runs it, but he'll get his friends.
Oh yeah. I have seen it.
John Landis is one of the filmmakers who does commentaries on that. And he does a commentary on the trailer for Tora, the Pearl Harbor bombing movie that, funnily enough, Kurosawa was directing before an American studio said, "We don't think you're good enough for this, Akira Kurosawa." But John Landis makes a joke about a helicopter crash in the trailer. Yeah. So if it's good enough for Landis, I mean, to be honest, the helicopter crash was horrendous, but it still wasn't as bad as Blues Brothers 2000. That's just
true.
Yeah. I mean, if I was John Belushi, I'd be haunting that fucker for that. That was,
Yeah, that was really bad.
Yeah, I mean, I love John Gibbon, but it just, that's one of my pet peeves is we're doing a sequel, but it's just a remake. No. Never do that. Do you have pet peeves when it comes to films, apart from just being generally shit? Do you have anything that just,
Yeah, I mean, let me think. I guess like you were just saying, like remaking stuff, like that's why I hated these Disney Star Wars movies so much. They were shite.
Yeah.
They were terrible, and I will never watch Star Wars again. That's one franchise I will not be revisiting.
Yeah.
Because let's remake A New Hope. And then let's just make the best one of that trilogy, but it was still utter shite. Last Jedi, which made no sense whatsoever. Plot holes really pissed me off, and like unwarranted plot twists, where you see a movie and like the end of it just that shouldn't have happened. Like, there was no reason for that to happen.
Yeah, it's the Agatha Christie rule. You should be able to go back and find every one of the clues that the detective found, or it shouldn't just be thrown from left. It shouldn't be plucked.
She's Palpatine's grand. Come from? Like, why is he back? Like, it's like. I mean,
I'm never going to complain about Maury and McDermott. I mean, you did mention Return of the Jedi. I mean, to this day, I don't think I go a day without finding some reason to find a way to fit in. I think your friends will find this station quite operational when they arrive into everyday conversation, which isn't as easy as you'd think to do. But that's
Ian
McDermott. Yeah, you're right though. That a pet peeve of mine that they did there is that last one was only an excuse for J.J. Abrams to say, "I didn't like the Last Jedi. I'm gonna."
Yeah,
I'm just
the ego there killed me. It's like, you literally undid everything that Rian Johnson did just so you
Rian Johnson, sorry, he's one of my filmmakers who, when he puts a movie out, I'm there.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, like I said, Last Jedi was probably the best one of that trilogy, honestly.
Yeah.
Which.
But sorry, you were saying the ego trip of JJ.
Yeah, his ego trip. It's like, I gotta undo everything that Ryan did because I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And J.J. Abrams is a second-rate director at best. Yeah. Like, he's not that good. He just rehashes everything that Spielberg, George Lucas ever did.
Yeah, when you make Super 8, I think you're kind of telling us what your influences are. To be fair, he got there a little bit before Stranger Things, but it's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? It's just.
I mean, Stranger Things is basically a remake of Super 8.
Yeah. Although at least it didn't take up my whole feed every day on Facebook with memes and posts.
Yep. What else? I guess like.
One of mine, while you're thinking, would be when they tell you that they're launching a trilogy before anybody has bought one ticket for the first movie. The worst example of that would be we're doing the new Universal Monsters series, folks. It's going to start with the Mummy and Tom Cruise. And we've already announced that Angelina Jolie is going to be the Bride of Frankenstein, Javier Bardem is the Invisible Man, Russell Crowe is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then nobody saw the Mummy, and the whole thing was quietly forgotten about.
Yeah. Or how about like when they start reigniting a franchise that no one wanted reignited?
Yeah.
Like Avatar.
Right. Avatar 2009. Yeah, that sounds about right. 2009. At the time, there were loads of people that were into, and let's be honest, younger people that were into Navi. Is that what they were called? The Blue Man Group. Those guys.
Smurfs.
Yeah. Fern Gully, The Last Shite Forest. So those folks, whatever they were called, those people that were into that, who the hell 14 years later is still going to be... I have never met anybody who says, you know what I can't wait for? Avatar 2. Still, even when the trailer came out a month or so ago, I didn't hear anybody talking about that.
Yeah, dude, I just laughed about it. I'm like, no one's going to see this.
He's filmed 5 of them already. He's done 5.
He's crazy. He just has more money than he knows what to do with. So he's just making all these shite movies.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, was Avatar the worst movie ever made? No. But it is not a movie that's warranting sequels 14 years later.
Yeah. And it's because it was the biggest film ever made box office-wise at the time. And he broke his own record. And Jim Cameron did not need an ego trip already. He was already, This is the guy that said he would like a minute's silence at the Oscars when he won for Titanic. And then at the end of the minute silence went, I'm the king of the world. You think, yeah, you're a fucking prick. That's what you are. You're just lucky. What were we going to say?
I mean, Titanic wasn't even that good.
No, it wasn't. It was, I saw the ending coming. I saw the ending coming a mile away, Ryan. I'll be honest. I was sure that ship was going to sink. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I just picked up on some stuff, but I didn't think we were making it to New York at the end. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole iceberg about movies like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was just the tip of it. But yeah, I mean, then Avatar obviously did well because it was hey, 3D is back. So you better all go see it in the next 20 minutes before everybody hates 3D again. So everybody went to see 3D, not Avatar.
So come see Dances with Smurfs.
Yeah. Why can't we have, I don't know, The Devil Wears Prada 3D, just do something ridiculously random 3D. But that was riding the crest of the wave, and it was also massive in China when the dollar was weak against the yen and the box office was inflated. Somebody did the number crunching and worked out if it was released like 2 years earlier, it wouldn't have been the biggest movie ever made. So it would still have been number 2, so it would still have been up there, number 1 and 2. But I don't even know what the biggest. I don't get any of the money, so I don't really follow these things. It's like Oscars. Yeah. I don't get the. Well, actually, I do get my Oscar. I don't even know what I've done with it, but it's about here somewhere. It's had some use recently, but when people go on about award ceremonies and things, I think it doesn't make the film any better. I don't care if you're or Grammys, for example, with music. I couldn't care less how many awards you win. It's not going to make the music sound better. Mm-hmm. That's a kind of pet peeve. But
yeah. One other thing that is a pet peeve right now for me.
What's that?
Well, and I understand it, but like, I just wish that theaters were still, I guess, like getting a bit more love than before, like than they are right now. Like Well, you even saw Disney Plus, like with what they did with that Mulan movie. They put it on there, like you had to pay $30 to watch the movie. Like, I just feel like we gotta keep the theaters alive, or companies like that are gonna pull that BS. And like, no one even wanted to see Milan, but they still charge $30. Like, so what will happen next? Like, I don't want to see them close down. And I think streaming's cool, but I don't love new to theater movies being on streaming.
Yeah.
I hope that's not something that stays. I understand that it was necessary for the pandemic, but I hope that it'll kind of be pushed away a little bit.
No, I'll be honest. Pandemic, when it meant that I could now watch Godzilla versus Kong much sooner, I was so happy, because I don't care. I know a lot of people don't like the MonsterVerse, but whenever Kong's in there, I'm on. And Godzilla, I just adore. I don't think there's a particularly great Kong and Godzilla movies, although I do love Kong Skull Island. I think that's a legit good Kong movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
It was necessary for during the pandemic, but I just hope that as things calm down more and more, that the theaters will get a bit more attendance, just because I don't want to see that die. I mean, it's such a good time going to see movies in the theater, and it's a special experience, and so I just hope that'll stick around.
Do you know, I was thinking that you mentioned Star Wars obviously was Return of the Jedi for you, so you would have been very young when the prequel trilogy came out. You would only been 2 when that launched, and I remember this does not happen here. At the end of a movie, people do not clap in the UK. It never happens. It doesn't matter if it's a masterpiece. At the end of episode 1, everybody burst into applause, and I think it was the first time I ever berated an audience. Not the last time, but certainly the first time I ever berated an audience, where I had to stand up and just go, "Shut the fuck up. I'm not... George Lucas isn't in here. What are you clapping? The projector? Piss off. What's that about? Why you... Jar Jar's not listening to you. Stepped in a poopy."
I mean, I will defend the prequels. I will.
I think you're going to need to elaborate on that a little bit. Come on now.
All right. So first of all, they're very, very flawed. There's issues with the writing. There's issues with the acting. But there's also some really good acting in those movies.
Ian McGregor.
Yep. But the one thing that the prequel trilogy did really, really well that none of the other movies did is the world building.
New ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no point. Sorry.
They did that even better than the original trilogy, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They really went out there, and like you had stuff like an Attack of the Clones, like you had Obi-Wan being like a detective going around and stuff.
That's right.
Going to all these different worlds and stuff. And that was awesome. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, there was the cheesy romance and the bad dialogue, but there was some really cool stuff in those movies. So I still like them just because they were not creatively bankrupt like these Disney ones now.
I will give you that, where these Disney ones are obviously designed by committee to reach as many people as possible, whereas those films were designed by George Lucas to reach George Lucas. And if if you were along for it, then great. If you weren't, you're going to be anyway. It's a new Star Wars movie, so
it's like you talked about Rattle and Hum.
Mm-hmm.
They're a mess. They're a mess. But I kind of love the mess.
Do you know, I did see them all in the cinema because, again, it was Star Wars. And at the time, Star Wars, we could just about handle was becoming 6 movies. We didn't know that 17 years later, it would also be 319 TV shows, and a whole, young Han Solo, and oh, we really need to know how R2D2 got those plans. That's really important. We should have a whole movie about that. Piss off. But I like that notion that you came up with, that they are much more original. They didn't feel the need to just do a mini Death Star in everyone, or a proto Death Star, or they had a little teaser at the end of Sith, didn't they, where it shows you the Death Star being constructed, but they didn't just rely on old stuff. You're right. Although how do you possibly cast Samuel L. Jackson in a Star Wars movie and give him the most boring character in the history of characters? What's all that about? Especially when you give him a purple lightsaber. That should have been he should have been out there. That should have been his trilogy. Just an X-rated Star Wars movie with him motherfucking everybody, that would Palpatine, I'm standing and I like you, motherfucker. Did you kill those younglings? Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
Hand over the lightsaber, mother.
But the first time, so episode 1, again, I was 14 and I had to shout at an audience for clapping. Episode 2, we knew what we were in for by then. So me and my mate Paul, he's got Leon, went to see Top Gun recently with him. We riff tracked it the whole way through in the back row, and honestly, everybody around us was having a much better time with our version of Attack of the Clones than they were with the movie. At least that's how I remember it. If you ask them, they might not have. It might have been a little bit odd, but it was a terrific time. Not a terrific movie, but I always think number 3, Revenge of the Sith. The Sith Fight Back. Was it? I can't remember the name of it. The one where Christopher Lee gets his hands cut off. That's the one I enjoyed the most. And that's damning with faint praise. And it's totally because you've got more Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine camping it up, and you've got more Ewan McGregor doing his. Oh God, I actually get to do something in this one, which I loved. That whole. Hello there. I love all that stuff. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground.
I hate you.
And my old friend Gary and I told him before we went to see it, I said, he's a dialogue freak. Not even just a screenwriting freak and a plot freak, just dialogue specific. And I said, there is a scene in this where the word love is used about 419 times, and I guarantee you will think it's the worst thing you've ever seen in your life, but you will kind of love it because it exists. And he came out and phoned me and said, I take it was that scene where she's going, then love has blinded you, but I love, love, love. Love you, love me, love. Who's your favorite band? Love, 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 love. Yeah. Oh, what?
Yeah.
I hate sand. It gets everywhere.
That wasn't the second one.
Yeah, but I'm just any bad Hayden Christensen line. Yeah.
It's rough. It doesn't feel good, and it gets everywhere.
It's like, and also, my mother was killed and raped by Tusken Raiders out in the sand. So that's that should be a bigger reason, shouldn't it? By the way, I used to be a slave in the sand. That's a much bigger reason. Oh, it gets in between your toes and it's really annoying. Yeah. I mean, this is why Disney haven't given me the call yet, because my version of Star Wars would be a little more gritty and realistic, but not in a Mandalorian gritty and realistic way. It would just be an actually gritty and realistic movie. Where people just
Abel Ferreira.
Oh yeah. Christopher Walken as Obi-Wan. I have the high ground. It's over, Annie. I'd see that in a heartbeat. He is
Dennis Hopper is Anakin.
Oh, but just in fact, just the cast of True Romance just explodes into the Star Wars universe. You know, you're part eggplant. Yeah, you know that could definitely be in the Star Wars universe. I would have cast Dennis Hopper as Admiral Akbar or something. That would, it's a trap, man. I mean, God bless him. I hated those Romero. You mentioned Night of the Living Dead. I hated the sequel trilogy for those. But Dennis Hopper's the president in Land of the Dead, I want to say. And as the president at the time, we thought nobody that ridiculous could ever become the president of the United States of America. That aged well. But he has one of my favorite lines in a Romero movie where after everything's gone down, all Dennis Hopper can come up with is fucking zombies, man. They freak me out. I think that's screenwriting for you, folks. He's been living in a world where everybody knows has been eaten. They freak me out, man. But
freak me out, man.
Yeah. But listen, we could probably have that in real life if that happened these days. I could see that happen. Some of my best people are zombies. The best zombies in the world. Everybody knows. It's very smart zombies. Everybody tells me they're the best zombies.
Oh, they're tremendous zombies.
There's other zombies over there, and we don't want them over here. We're going to build a wall, folks. He's always becoming a bit camper there. He's going to build a wall, folks. Camp Trump. Oh, no, we better not. He'd probably build one of them. Camp Trump, that would put an idea in his head. All the school kids come visit Camp Trump. It'll be great. They can learn about their favorite president. Yeah. Hopefully, in 300 years, people will find this video somehow out in space and they will go, I wonder what this Trump guy was all about. So we've been rabbiting for a while. We won't go on all night, but I thought we could briefly, while we're on the subject, discuss abortion rights, gun control, and just the general state of the Supreme Court. So please just go. No, I'm not going to do that. Gee, don't worry. Don't worry. Ryan has to live in America, folks. Yeah. There'll be snipers. Yeah. No, so you don't have to answer that question.
I think that
Yeah. It's okay. I know your opinion, and frankly, they disgust me. Yes. Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking, folks. That's exactly what Ryan says in private. He is that much of a monster. He's really nice. That's why I like Ryan. We're going to wrap up, buddy. I think we've had a good conversation. We've covered Cinema Flicks music picks, and we've covered the best part of the two, which is Brian Gavalier being able to talk to buddies, to share passions, as we've discussed, is one of the things that we love to do. As my granny told me on her deathbed, if you can do it yourself, great, but if you can do it with other people, all the better. She was a weird woman. She was a lonely woman, but yeah. So we're going to wrap up, Ryan, but I've never had a guest. I've never had to say this before. Do you want to do your plugging thing for your, do you want to stump for your channel? Because I happen to enjoy your channel. I happen to really stump for it myself. So please tell people about your channel, your raison d'etre, and what you've got.
Yeah. All right. So I have a channel. It's called Ryan's Final Destination, where we talk about music and films of all different formats, not just vinyl, CDs and cassettes as well. But tomorrow, the 13th, we have Judas Priest, our best of compilation at 7 p.m. Eastern. We also have U2, a retrospective episode 4, Octung Baby and Zooropa tomorrow at 9 p.m. On the 18th, I have a Jimi Hendrix episode with Marco from the Contrarians at 8 p.m., where we'll be talking about our collections. We have Scorpions, our best of compilation at 9 p.m. on the 18th. Let's see here. On the 19th, Prince best of compilation part 2, the 1990s at 8 p.m. Tonight we have Bitches Brew versus On the Corner by Miles Davis at 8.
No point in mentioning that. By the time this is up, we've done it.
Oh yeah, that's right. August 2nd, 8 p.m. Peter Jones and I will discuss our music influences. August 15th, 7 p.m. John Clauser and I will discuss his CD that he made. August 20th, 7 p.m. I'll be chatting about guitars and gear with Grant. And August 25th, 8:30 p.m., there will be Bob Dylan Best of Compilation Part 1, the 1960s. And also in August, on the 15th at 8:30 p.m.
World premiere announcement, folks.
Davy and my friend Joey from college are going to be talking about David Lynch. We'll be starting a whole little series. It's called Lynch Talk with the Bookhouse Boys. And we'll be starting by talking about the series Twin Peaks, and we'll be going through we'll be talking about the pilot episode and our history with David Lynch on that episode. We'll be going through the whole series throughout various episodes and his filmography as well. So that's going to be a ton of fun. And then I also have a Facebook and an Instagram and Twitter as well, where I post like written reviews, share my Sea of Tranquility reviews, etc. So yeah, thank you. That's Ryan's Final Destination.
No problem. And I want to personally say thank you for allowing me on your channel so often, despite how crazy things get. We built up an instant rapport, and it just seemed, it's like we've just known each other for years. We just crack each other up, and it's been a blast. It's when you say it feels like it's been years already, that kind of sounds like a bad thing. But no, it's been an absolute blast, and I know. But it's been a terrific raid so far. And to quote Karen Carpenter, we've only just begun.
Oh, too late.
Yeah. But there ain't no way to hide those Ryan eyes. So I can come up with your name.
I'm hiding them.
Yeah. I was trying to think of Gavalier, but then I was just going to get lost trying to think of a lyrics Cavalier in it. What a Gavalier attitude. So, Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. It always is. Folks, I'm going to link to Ryan in the description should you have watched this far. Frankly, I wouldn't have. I would have just skipped my bits and just jumped to Ryan. He's always the most interesting part. Apart from next week when Tyler's on, in which case Tyler will be the most interesting part. I'm going to butter up everybody because, I might need repeat performances for these things,
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, you know who my favorite person is? Whoever I'm talking to right now. Ryan, it has been a pleasure. You mentioned already Brian Wilson's solo debut. I end every video the same way. Folks, stay very safe out there. But most importantly, love and mercy. You say it as well.
To you and your friends tonight. Love and mercy is what you need tonight.
I was sitting in a crummy movie called 4-4.
All the violence that occurred, well, it really scared me.
Brian's terrified of 4-4. gotta write a song about Thor 4. It's freaking me.
Love and mercy is what you need to know.
Oh, if everybody embraced love and mercy, we wouldn't have any Thor 4s anymore.
No thunder, no love.
Oh,
no
I said to
Thor.
Nathan last night, my videos end, and then there's an extra bit at the end. It never just ends. You know, it's just chaos ensues. Ryan, we're going to wrap up, but let's give them another love and mercy, and then we'll give them some. I walk the line. I walk every day for you. I keep on working. Right, we're not going to do the whole album. We may do it. We may do that at some point. I'm sure there'll be a video at some point. But, you know.
Definitely.
An absolute pleasure, folks. Again, link in the description. Episode 2 next week is going to feature a young Tyler. A wild Tyler has been spotted, and we're going to grab him. Folks, if you haven't seen Tyler's channel, he's on LP Tremors. I'll link to him as well so that you can do your homework and see what he's all about. Although I've already linked to him already. In fact, I'm promoting him too much. Fuck him. No. No, I love Tyler. We had a great video last night with them. I should plug some stuff too, but frankly, I ain't gonna. So that's the end of the video, folks. If you didn't enjoy it, please dislike, because I still get to see the dislikes, and I quite like to see them. Although I always like Ryan's videos. Subscribe and share to Ryan and whatnot, and he's got a Patreon. Do that as well. Don't bother with the Patreon for me. Just send me the cash or the whatever comes first. But love and mercy, folks. Love and mercy.
Love and mercy.
I thought I could handle it, but Ragnarok was okay, but this one just
it really scared me.
I went to a bar and I was watching all the people there. We've just got this bizarre voice for Brian he doesn't even have, you know, it's just... Again, I think this is the third ending of the video. So this will get more endings than Return of the King here, folks. This video was brought to you by Peter Jackson. Yeah, folks, thanks very much for watching. If you made it this far, get yourself a drink. You fucking deserve it. And if you don't drink, now's a good time to start. So,
and go see a therapist.
Yeah, remind me to tell you about my therapist in a minute. It's a good story. And you know my stories are good when I have to tell them off here, because the stuff I say on here. Yeah. Ryan, an absolute pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Everybody, good night, good luck, goodbye. Well, that's quite a good end, and I might use that in the future. That's quite good as well. Right.